Your someday starts today. It's time to explore and test the newest science, methods, and trends for creating a life you love with your host, Tanya MFK. Welcome to My Designed Life.
All right, welcome to My Designed Life, where we bring you realistic ways to create your best life now and then test them to see what really works. I'm your host, Tanya MFK, and thank you for joining me today. You can catch us every other Monday live right here at 3 p.m. EST, as well as YouTube, Binge Networks TV, IGTV, My Designed Life podcast, and all your favorite podcast platforms. And I am sending a shout out to our FM listeners at 99.1 FM, WDJY, and WTTA 101 in Kentucky and Ohio. Thank you so much for always showing up and supporting our show. So today, we are going to learn the power that the pencil, pen, or keyboard has to transform our thoughts, our days, and ultimately our lives by reducing stress, managing anger, preventing burnout, improving health, and increasing clarity and more through the simple practice of journaling. We're going to learn how to do it simply and effectively. But first, on our last show with Dr. Arti Soria, we learned some crazy things. And to be honest, I've been a bit obsessed with them since the show. Despite that, I have to be honest, I totally flailed my challenge, which was to get 30 minutes, and I thought I was going to be super awesome. I even said 90 minutes of no screen time before bed. And no, I wasn't scrolling Instagram. I was actually staying up late working, staring at my computer. And this is when I realized how poor my sleep patterns really were. We have such a skewed memory as humans. We tend to think we do more or less than we actually do. And I really thought I was better at this whole sleep thing and the no screen time thing, healthy work balance, and all of that. But you know what? Turns out I'm not. Absolutely not. I saw myself in this try to get more, stay up late, try to get more done and stay up late trap, right? And it was such a wake-up call, right? Like I really thought like, oh, some days I'm off, but overall I'm pretty good. But when I was asked to track it, even just for 5 days, I was so off. Didn't even do it once, not even once. So some of the things that have been stuck in my head since the last show, one, our bodies create Alzheimer's and cancer cells every day, and that's normal. And that proper sleep is what clears out the Alzheimer and cancer cells we're making, which means a lack of sleep keeps them piling up. They're not getting swept out. Also, it's not just getting sleep, but the quality of sleep that matters. So crappy sleep doesn't count, and it's not helping heal us. So the other thing was that lacking sunlight will affect our sleep. We need to get in the sun every day. And yes, cloudy days count. Being from California, we know that you can get sunburned even on a cloudy day. So the sun is there, even if you can't see it. And also that we're getting too much blue light, and the blue light is everywhere. Also learning that my blue filter lights were child's play, and I need a pair that filters blue, green, and violet light. That lack of sleep can also make us fat, moody, and is interrupting our body's daily healing and regeneration. And you guys, she told me after the show that there was so much more she didn't get to say. I feel that we have been so naive in thinking that sleep was useless or a waste of time or something to be taken lightly or pushed to the edge. It truly is the magic pill, the easy medicine that we are all ignoring. So if you haven't seen the episode, go back and check it out. It's called Sleep Your Way to the Top with Dr. Soria. It was so much fun and terrifying at the same time. But go check out that emotional roller coaster and make some healthy changes. So on kind of a lighter note, for today's show and today's guest, with an entire career history taking care of others, she worked as a medical social worker in the ICU and emergency room department, providing crisis intervention as a member of the quick response team, moving into a position in organizational health as a mental health professional, addressing workplace stress, burnout, and trauma, then expanding as a trainer for individuals, schools, communities affected by or involved in working with issues of crisis, violence, and trauma. This is a woman thoroughly familiar with stress, pain, and suffering and what we need for healing and self-care. So if you think nobody knows the troubles you've seen, this is the woman to talk to. With a BA, RSW, and MSW, she is a registered social worker, certified professional coactive coach, life and wellness coach, and also carries certifications in Reiki healing, critical incident stress debriefing, SLN massage, and more. As if that wasn't enough, she's the co-author of an international bestseller, Inspiration for a Woman's Soul, Choosing Happiness, and Writing Alone Together, as well as the author of Life Source Writing and producer of the Creative Wellness Guided Meditations. In order to prevent her own burnout and depression that seems almost obvious to go hand in hand with a career history like this, she turned to journaling and developed not only a method for health and healing, but upon realizing the profound benefits of this practice, she created the International Association for Journal Writing, teaching others globally how to adapt this practice for their own wellness through courses, retreats, and coaching. If you are ready to learn a practice that can improve your health, reduce stress, guide self-expression, and increase clarity, please join me in welcoming Lynda Monk. Hi, Lynda.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Oh my goodness. I am really, really so excited. I'm all ears. I just reading your history. I'm like, you have been a witness to the muck and mire that humans can go through.
Yeah. And what comes with that is equally seeing people and their incredible resilience stories. The ability to survive all of that is really what it's all about.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and so I really I think the idea of burnout in general, right? I'm so thankful that it's becoming more to the forefront and people are acknowledging that it's a real thing. But I'm also seeing that I think it like people are kind of confused and it starts to become a buzzword that's just anywhere. And so really can you kind of bring us into what this whole thing is, like what you've seen, where people are at and how this is really helping them. Oh, there we go. Hi, Lynda. Did we miss you for a second?
Hi, Tanya. Something froze there. Yeah.
Okay. No problem. No problem. Hey, this is live. That's what happens. So what I was saying was that, with all of this, I talk about burnout. I'm so glad that burnout is finally being discussed. It's finally being accepted as a thing. But I also think there's a lot of confusion and a lack of maybe taking it seriously. Kind of like I was discussing earlier about our episode about sleep, right? It's like, well, we know it's not supposed to happen. It's not good, but it happens. And burnout is something as we come into these holidays, people are pushing themselves more in work and business with family, probably doing a lot more. I would just love to hear maybe a little bit about how you came together with all of this, from like these depths of crisis and resilience to journaling.
Yeah, I just like to say a bit about burnout because you said something really important there, that we can kind of turn a deaf ear to it. That's not exactly how you said it, but people's eyes can glaze over when you start talking about burnout. And in part because I think it's so prevalent in our society, and it's hard for people to acknowledge that they're really hitting that wall. And burnout is different than stress, because it is the accumulation of stress, that type of stress that has no ebb and flow. It's just that full-on press without reprieve over time. And burnout slowly happens. It doesn't just happen after a full week, a bad day, a stressful time. It happens slowly, very insidiously over time. And it happens to people who were once on fire, people who were passionate, purpose-driven. And slowly, that's sort of the first stage of it. It's a precursor to it. So in that way, it's very painful when people do burn out, because their starting point was not that place. Their starting point was very engaged, very on fire, very purpose-driven. And slowly over time, through that high stress, just pedal to the metal approach to things, there's this erosion where people slowly start not tending to the self. Their own needs become less of a priority, less important. There's more of this self-sacrifice to go, and serve others and so forth, which on the surface sounds fine, but what's happening beneath the surface is really an erosion, and an exhaustion of caring can happen, a complete depletion, and people can really end up, again, slowly in that place of, it starts with small things. Initially, maybe, you used to take a lunch break and now you don't, or maybe you used to go for a walk and now you don't. And just these subtle deprivations of the self that become normal. And then
Right.
there's this real setting in that one's own needs aren't important. And of course, if something isn't important, we don't tend to it. And, on it goes until a full burnout can happen. And so the answer your question about the link with journaling, when I did my master's of social work studies back in 95 to 98, a long time ago, I went into those studies with the question of how do you do work? And in this case, I was specific to my social work career. How do you do work that's about helping others at times of high need, suffering, trauma, and not suffer yourself? How do you do a career like that and stay vibrant, engaged, healthy, and not suffer deeply as a result of the exposure to other people's suffering?
Right.
It was a prevailing question I had, is how do we not burn out? And when I was doing that research, I kept coming across information about journaling. The research was showing that having a reflective practice, a way to process our own emotions going through stressful times, whether in a helping profession or not, I was just looking through that lens, had this cathartic healing quality to it. And I had been a journal writer as a youngster, and then into my 20s when I was studying and working now in a high stress, high trauma field, and in my first marriage, I sort of drifted from the regularity of journaling. But I noticed that when I would have a high stress, high trauma time in the work, I would instinctively go back to the page and just work out, literally process and digest some of those difficult emotions, and it would help. It would feel a lot better. And so then when I did the research and saw this connection between reflective practice, journaling, burnout prevention, I'm like, that's been my secret sauce, is this journaling practice. This is why I haven't, burnt out doing this work. And I became very passionate about learning everything I could about that and teaching other people what I could as well.
Okay. Yeah. There's so much that I want to unpack here. So one of the first things that you mentioned was the kind of the nobility. It wasn't the exact word to use either, but in what we start to see is like that self-sacrifice, that we're helping others. And so it's easy to justify not taking care of ourselves, right? It's easy to go, well, I got to do this. I'm helping, I'm doing that. And I know, witnessing a lot of that myself, having that displayed to me in my family, and then seeing the resentment, the frustration, and those things that can happen that, again, ultimately lead to burnout when we're not doing anything to take care of ourselves, to tend to ourselves. I think the buzz statement now, I was going to say buzzword, but buzz statement is, to fill one's cup, right? Like your cup's not full, but you're pouring. And I think it's such a dangerous, obviously, trap to get into. And then how you mentioned that we it's the little things that we start to let go as well in our own, going, well, okay, for me, now I've experienced this. I've experienced burnout not that long ago. And I am, I guess, considered a high achiever, high performer, going after that. So you're just on that go, 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 go. And it would be, the gym would start to go, the routine would start to go, just one more late night, just, a little more of this, a little more of that. It's okay. I can see the family later, until you wake up one day and you don't want to do any of it. And then you feel terrible that you're not doing any of it. You don't want to do anything, with just starts to just become this cycle. So if you're in that place, how have you heard, is it easy for people to kind of go, well, pick up a pen and write about it? Or, what am I going to do next with that? So that's kind of what I wonder, how do we get people to go from that step to the next step? And
well, one of the most critical steps is self-awareness. Awareness is prevention when it comes to burnout. It's also the pathway to recovery if we're already there. And aware about what, you might wonder.
Right.
We want to be aware about what is the pattern, how are we living, and where is the stress overload costing us too much? What price are we paying? And
Okay.
therefore, what are some of the symptoms and effects we might be experiencing? And
well, I want to hear more about this. We need to take a break, and I definitely want to talk about the self-awareness a little more. But if you guys need to take a break, go ahead and do it as well. And while you do it, take us everywhere you go, live and uncensored with our UI Media streaming app. Go to uimediaapp.com and watch live now and catch all your favorite shows and replays. We'll be right back with Lynda Monk and how to prevent burnout through journaling. All right, guys, welcome back. I'm Tanya MFK, and you're watching My Design Life. We are here with Lynda Monk, and we are learning how to keep ourselves from burnout, really, through journaling. But before we dive back in, I just want to remind you to like, comment, share, and ask questions below this video. We will be checking with you all soon. And if you do want to call in and chat with us, please call at 1-678-495-4345. So Lynda, before the break, I had to jump in, and we were starting to talk about really recognizing where we're at and how to do that. So please go ahead and continue.
Yeah, it takes a bit of a self-inventory. One of the tendencies when we're burning out or feeling burnt out is to actually push harder. And the exact opposite, people will just they'll work harder, they'll work longer, they'll take another course, they'll just, keep full on.
You know me. And in my head.
Of course, and it's not just you, Tanya, it's kind of human nature and the mechanisms of burnout. And so if we know that, part of what we need to do to turn it around is to actually do the opposite. We need to hit pause. We need to slow down. We need to self-reflect and get real with how we're feeling, what's causing us to feel that way, because not all sources of stress deplete us. Some of them really inspire us and, light a fire under us, but some can just very slowly deplete our energy, cause anxiety, depression, other mental health challenges. So, of course, it can be quite serious. So that pushing that pause button wherever we're at and doing that with some self-compassion, because part of what happens with burnout is we completely abandon the self. Our needs become secondary, everything else becomes primary. And so we have to come back to the self and get reacquainted. Who am I now? What do I need? How do I feel? What's really going on here? And journaling is a tool that can help us take that pause. The moment we sit with our journal, pen, or computers, if people are journaling digitally, we're saying this time to myself matters. This pause matters. This self-reflection has value by virtue of taking the time to do it. So the act of doing that all by itself helps to push that pause button. And then if we go to the page, not just to ruminate and rehash every stressful thing that's going on and beat ourselves up and I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be feeling this way. If that self-critic just comes in on the page and takes over, it can actually make us feel worse. So we really want to direct on the page a sense of compassion, being non-judgmental, just getting curious, asking questions in the journal. What comforts me? When do I feel most energized? When do I feel most depleted? And really start to get very self-aware about what's going on, what stress symptoms you might be experiencing. And that comes before coming into, figuring out what you're going to do about it. Because quite often people then just want quick solutions. Everything's quick, fast. It's like, actually slow down, take some inventory, figure out what's going on so that you can make thoughtful movements forward that can make a difference. We can't change burnout by bringing the same mindset and the same actions that caused it. We all know this. We can't solve a problem with the same, we can't change
thing
something
that got us there. Yeah.
So, but sometimes we don't know what else to do. That's it's very habitual. And that is often linked to, we learn a lot about our own self-care, for example, early in our lives as children. We learn about the values of pausing, of work ethic, of being driven, of, many people have beliefs that they're worthy to the extent to which they're busy. They're worthy to the extent to which they produce or achieve or succeed or make money or whatever that belief is. And that can be a real monkey on someone's back, just driving them without ever really stopping to say, okay, what are my own, what are beliefs I need around self-care that will help me do it? So, for example, a very common thing I hear when it comes to self-care, whether it's journaling for self-care or exercising or getting more sleep, whatever it is, people will say they don't have time for it. And so I remember once with a friend, and she said, well, do you have time for a heart attack? Do you have time for a hospitalization? Because, in the absence of caring for ourselves, taking care of our health and mind, body, heart, and spirit, over time, there will be something at stake. Whether
then all
that's
of a
our
sudden
health,
you'll find time, right? You'll find, all of a sudden there's time to deal with a heart attack. So.
Yeah. So it's being more proactive and being willing to be responsive versus reactive. With burnout, it's often just reacting, what's right in front of us, do, what's there. Responsive is much more thoughtful. It's much more by design. It has boundaries. It has limits. It is grounded in strong self-awareness. It's grounded in self-kindness. So how would I treat someone I really, really care about? Would I talk to them the way I talk to myself in my head? Would I say if they, needed rest, no, you can't rest? If they needed a glass of water, say, no, you can't take time to do that. Would we talk like that and treat someone we care about like that? Right. Likely not, but we will do that to ourselves over and over again. We will not eat when we're hungry. We will not sleep when we're tired. We will avoid, our own needs. And sometimes people will say they feel guilty when they try to care for themselves because caring for others has such value. Working hard has such value. Most bosses in a workplace, for example, don't come along to an employee and say, I really like how you pace yourself. I really like how you take your breaks every day and take lunch and leave here on time at the end of the day. The messages that are reinforced and revered are often the ones of martyrdom, over-functioning, overworking. And that's really important to talk about in this conversation because the culture or the environments we're in, whether we're self-employed or in Fortune 500 companies or whatever the surround of our lives is, there's books written about how organizations burn people out.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have to look at we can't just blame victims and say, well, you're stressed and that's a personal failing, or you're burnt out and blame the victim, it's all your fault. Because often the environments we're in are equally, or if not more, contributing to that state of burnout. Right. And so we want to look at, what's going on in our environment, our homes, our workplaces, and look at what can we influence around that to support our well-being. Now, this is a far distance off of journaling, but if we go to the page and we just think about burnout at that individual level, without also thinking about the context, both are working together to create the conditions where we can thrive and be well and prevent burnout. It's never just about the individual.
Of course. Well, so how does someone even get to the point? Because like you said, we're in environments, we're in a society, being an entrepreneur, all I have to do is go on Instagram and everything is, rest when I die, hashtag hustle grind, it's just, successinators, as I call them. And so that's what we're surrounded by. And I think the first problem is if we adopt that, then and it's one of those things. So we're like, well, that must be how it is. And we see everyone else around it. If we're not even in the mindset that there's something wrong with that there's a different way, how do we get out of that?
And we don't even have to make any judgments about whether that's right or wrong, good or bad. I think we have to stay very engaged with, and how am I doing in that? How am I feeling? What choices am I making in this normative environment of stress is a pandemic of our times. It's the most common thing people go to general practitioner physicians for, are stress and stress-related illness. This is common. Yeah. And so since it's common, I think we're looking for new ways and new ways to talk about it, and looking for solutions so that we can lead fully engaged, healthy lives where we have the sweet spot where there's enough stress that we're feeling on purpose, but there's not so much that we can't get out of bed in the morning or don't want to because we're just so overwhelmed. And everybody's position on that continuum will look and feel different. And it'll feel different at different times in our life. So what might be real, without children and young and, maybe a bit more energy looks different than at middle age, raising kids with aging parents. And, our lives kind of pull us into these different realities. And so how do we stay grounded and centered? There's a reason that mindfulness is becoming part of our everyday language. And it's being considered the medicine of our times. And mindfulness and mindful journaling, I think of those things very interrelated, is simply that practice of being here now. So right now, being aware of the chair beneath me, being aware of my breath going in and out of my body, giving me life, having present moment awareness to our thoughts, our feelings, our body sensations. Because when we're burnt out, it's like we're just from the head up so often. It's just thinking, ruminating, worrying, thinking about the past, worrying about the future. And mindfulness invites us right here, right now, to get grounded and be aware so that our systems can be regulated. Because stress fires us. We've all heard about the fight, flight, or freeze response. Mm-hmm. And there's what's known as that window of tolerance, where we are, humming along, we're doing fine, we're holding a certain amount of stress, and we're neither tossed away into fight or flight or numbed out by the freeze response. We're engaged, we're managing it. And having practices that help us cultivate that mindfulness, that being present in the moment, is proven to help us reduce stress, actually help us hold more stress because our window of tolerance is wider versus compressed. So, for example, if a small thing happens, let's say you can't find your car keys, does that create a reaction of, where are they? And banging around and trying to find them and looking everywhere? Or does it, okay, I had them. Let me just take a look. How wide our window of tolerance is will dictate that response, how much bandwidth we have for coping with the pressures that come. And things like journaling help us widen that band. They help us be more responsive, less reactive. They help us to, because we're paying attention. Journaling is like meditating with a pen in your hand. When you're writing about your thoughts and your feelings, and not just today I went and, picked up groceries and dropped off my kid, we're actually using the journal as a self-companion tool to express our thoughts, our feelings. What am I feeling right now? Great question. A lot of people aren't connected to their feeling states at all. Right. And so that level of self-awareness and mindfulness can be cultivated through a practice like journaling or meditation, or, there's many yoga practices that bring us into present moment awareness, are wonderful antidotes to high stress and to burnout prevention, because we're telling the nervous system, we're helping the nervous system to settle. We're helping the nervous system to not just be on that high vibrational, high alert mode, but actually steady, able to respond, in its healthiest state as often as we can. None of us are in that every minute of every day.
Oh, you're right.
But
definitely.
If we can, none of us. But if we can be in it more often, it's literally like training a muscle. It gets stronger. Our capacity for it gets better.
So I want to dive in. We're going to take a break now, but I definitely want to dive into how we start doing this. So guys, we are going to be right back. In the meantime, mark your calendars for this Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to meet Artistic Director Angela Rose Mossy, bestselling author Karen White, and Certified Coach Eric Reed on In the Burbs. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to My Design Life. I'm your host, Tanya MFK, and we are preventing burnout. Before we dive in, we'll just do a quick audience check there. Looks like everyone's having some fun. So far, no one's too stressed, so that's good. If you guys do have any questions, feel free to comment on there. And if you even want to call in and ask Lynda some questions about your own experience or burnout. So, yeah, Lynda, let's dive in. What we were just getting on was really how we get there, what to look at. I love that you mentioned kind of the not judging, because I definitely judge that. I definitely look at that. I'm like, this is such a culture that's creating such a, negative thing for everyone. And yet, by my own admission, I've said, there's a reason why the Gary V's of the world exist, because there's some people who need that kick in the pants to like get off and get going for their dreams. And so it does serve a purpose. And so I love that you have that reminder that it's not always bad. It's not bad or good. It's about where we are, which everything comes back to that self-awareness, that knowing where you're at, which is really what this journaling provides. And so as you've explained kind of a lot of the components of what we need to do and not ruminating on the problem, but asking where we're at, I think for myself and the listeners, I'd love to dive into, well, what should we be writing? Are there prompts? Are there a foundation we need to know? I'm assuming it's not Dear Diary today. I went to the grocery store, like you said. So what do we do? How do we do it? I don't know if I should say the right way, but a way that's helpful for us.
Yeah, there is a lot of research on the therapeutic value of writing and expressive writing in particular. And expressive writing, very simply, is when we write about our thoughts and our feelings. So we can also write about circumstances and situations, and there's value in our journals. And many people will say they write when things are difficult or they're having a hard time, and just to get it out. And then when they feel better, they stop again. And so that's certainly one application people have, is just that dump it all down, get it out, the catharsis that comes. And that's definitely one thing that can help. We can just, kind of vent it out and digest it. And just by getting it out, it helps to transform our relationship to it. But we can also use it to do inventories, like, where am I at right now? What is my stress level? If it's, if we're using it for burnout prevention, for example, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed am I in this moment? 10 being off the charts, like can barely function, overwhelmed, can't think clearly, not sleeping well, appetite's off, really irritable, frustrated, like lots of stress symptoms. And 1, not stressed at all, not feeling any of that stimulation or agitation. So going to the page and doing regular self check-ins, just emotional self check-ins. Right now I'm feeling, right now I'm noticing. And some people will do that many times a day as a mindful practice. I don't do it that often. It's certainly not multiple times a day, but I'll do a check-in. Where am I at? And the other is using it to just really connect with your inner wisdom. So you might start a journal entry by saying, inner wise guide, what do you have for me right now? Or inner self, what do you think about this? Where you're really building your skills and capacity to be engaged with your own inner awareness. Because, of course, that's where all the solutions are. There is no one size fits all, do this, do that, and, it will be in the land of stress-free living forever, because it's an ongoing, it's like daily life, ever changing. And so our tools that come with us in that journey, they're ever changing as well. So I also like to think of journaling as a place to really create the feeling states we want. So if I'm really stressed out, I might go to the page and get that out and then say, okay, what do I need? What do I want? What would help me replenish right now? And just really let that inner voice of need, because the moment we reconnect back with our needs, we're no longer in that stage of burnout where we're completely turning a blind eye to our needs. We're inviting them in, we're asking what they are. And then, of course, it's kind of like, so what, now what? Maybe we've been journaling about, I need a break, or I need to talk to my friend, or I need to do something fun for a little while, or I need to get out in nature. Then what's nice is to, when we raise that awareness through the journaling, is then to take action.
Yes.
Awareness without any action really is only half of
Well,
the
and I want to
benefit we
ask
can
you
get.
that because I know, I mean, just conversations you'll hear all the time, like, man, I need, like you were saying, I need a break, I need a vacation. And then the next is why we can't take that action, which is usually because of the whole busy stress thing that we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way for us to, is it just accepting that we're trying to make it better, or is there some other thing that goes,
Well,
that's what
when
we
we can
need?
start to do a few things differently, we can break that habit pathway. We can start to create new neural pathways in the brain that seeks a different movie than I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too stressed. Because that's a habit too, right? We've really normalized busyness. It's like, it's fine if you're not suffering from it. If you're not burning out and you're full on and having fun, like go for it. But if you're doing that and you're paying a cost, maybe you're having, problems in your marriage and health problems and other stressors, like you're paying the price for that, it's kind of a good time to say, okay, well, what
Yeah.
am I going to do different? Or not, but at least begin to, be in that conscious choice.
So I guess if you've
And
been journaling for long enough, like, you said, okay, Lynda, I'm doing this, I'm listening to you. Maybe I'm skeptical, maybe I'm, grumpy, whatever. And I
yeah,
start journaling, I start doing it, and I'm telling my, like, man, I could use a break. And like day one, I'm still in the, yeah, but that's never going to happen. And then like day two, I'm writing it, and day three, day four. I guess at that point, after a while, you're beginning to even learn to be self-aware, and I guess the hope is that there'd be some sort of breaking point where you're like, you get it now, you see
well,
it.
actually, on day two, you're already doing something you haven't done 3 days before that. You're stopping it long enough to write it down,
Right.
right? And even acknowledging those small micro moments of change. Today I took 5 minutes on a coffee break and took a few minutes to write for myself. That's 5 minutes that maybe you didn't take the day before that, or the day before that, or the day before that. That's already a change. And letting that be enough. Letting those small micro movements of coming back to the self in a self-nurturing, self-loving, self-compassionate way actually begin to give you your own answers, your own results. And when we recognize that even the smallest things can give us big results, if we've been in self neglect, in a burnt out state, just press, 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 go, 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 resentment that our needs aren't being met, resentful other people aren't meeting our needs, resentment really builds in burnout. And so does indifference and depression, and what's the point, and really wondering what it's all about anyway, and spiritual crisis, what's the meaning of my life, like all of these things can come
Right.
with burnout.
Yeah.
When we slowly come back to the self in whatever way we might, journaling is one powerful way to do that. We get to meet ourselves anew a little bit. And it's like, okay, here I am today showing up for this writing practice. And here I am, and here I am. And slowly it's something that can it's good to pause after you've written and notice how you feel. Do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Did it give you any sort of relief or catharsis, or did you feel good doing it? And most of us don't show up over and over again to things that make us feel like crap on purpose.
Right. Right.
And so we want these things to be, and journaling isn't one size fits all. Not journaling isn't for everybody, just like yoga isn't for everybody, or meditation isn't for everybody. But it is one of those self-care tools we can put in our toolkit that is evidence-based. The science shows us it can help our immune system improve. We can get better rest. We can make decisions better. We can have more clarity. We can prevent burnout, reduce stress. And so it's a pretty simple thing to do. It doesn't cost a lot. You need a piece of paper and a pen, or a tool you already have, a phone or a computer. So you don't have to go someplace. You don't need to invest a lot of money. You just need to be willing to stop and put the pen to paper and see where it takes you. When I do, and I do many workshops on self-care, burnout prevention, writing for wellness, and we'll do a 5-minute timed writing. And that's it, 5 minutes. And I'll get people to sort of rank their stress level, how they're feeling before they start writing. We set a timer, and I just use the prompt, right now I'm feeling, or right now I notice. They write for 5 minutes, and then I pause them and get them to look at what they wrote and say what I notice about what I wrote is, or what I feel about what I wrote is. And they write for another minute. And the majority of people, and then I get them to raise their hand, like how many people had something positive have a positive feeling or had some insight or had some benefit from those 5 minutes. And 99% of the time, people put their hand up and say they did. And that was just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, the power of language and story and self-expression, they're good medicine. They're healing creative tools that are available to us. And if we just trust, we might eat vegetables because we know it's good for us. We might not know all the reasons why it's good for us. And we don't necessarily have to give it a shot and bring it into our diet. Most of us know staying hydrated is a decent thing for our health, our energy. Do we have to know all the research about why, good hydration affects our cells and our clarity of mind? No, we just
not to get the benefits.
Exactly. And the same is true of journaling. And I think it is helpful to know that it is an evidence-based practice. There is a great deal of research over the past 30, 40 years that shows the healing power of writing. And most people have, in our popular, information on health and wellness, we know about things like yoga or massage or getting good rest and a healthy diet and benefits of exercise. We may not also know that journaling lives right alongside of that as a health producing practice in our lives. And it can be so fun and creative. People do art journaling and mixed media journaling and scrapbook type of journaling, and some people do travel journals and dream journals, and it can be such
There's
a
different
fun
variations, right? You can get into. So what's the starter kit, though, right? So we have all these things, and I think there's a lot of people they're kind of finally hearing, coming around, going, okay, I hear it, and the thread that's coming through is there's nothing about being a writer. There's no necessarily right or wrong way to do it. But if you are coming into it, and what's the starter kit? What do I find somewhere to write or whatever I want, and doesn't matter, right? Digital, paper, all that.
Yeah, there is some research about a little bit of difference between handwriting and computer, only because of what happens with the neural pathways in the brain, left and right brain stimulation. But if you're using a computer, you can actually rub the part of so I'm right-handed. I can stimulate the part of my hand that would normally go over the page when I write and get some of that same engagement if I'm choosing to use the computer.
Oh my goodness.
So there's lots of wonderful techniques, but the starter kit is to get a pen you like to hold and get a journal that you're prepared to write in. Not too nice that you don't want to, mess it up.
You don't want to mess it up.
And, but, kind of make it a fun self-care ritual. Where do you want to write? Do you want some music on? Do you want to light a candle? Do you want to go in a public space?
Okay.
So just kind of think about that. What do you want your experience of journaling to be like?
All right, guys. Well, we have our last break here. And as a first step to changing your mindset with this, check the United Intentions Foundation Seeds of Intention and Sprouts of Intention Daily Planner Duo to organize your thoughts and intentions. You can check those out by clicking Shop Now on the uimedianetwork.org website. So go check those out and come right back. Okay, guys, we are back. So I'm your host, Tanya MFK, and this is My Design Life show. So we are wrapping up here with Lynda. This has just been so powerful, you guys. There's so much science behind this. There's so much power behind this. What really, I think, interests me so much in this is that you have seen so much that people have gone through. I'm sure there's a wealth of techniques with all of the things that you're certified in and all these, but journaling has been the thing, right? That you have used so powerfully. And again, not to say none of those things are as powerful, but it just amazes me that something, like you said, is so accessible, doesn't require investment, doesn't require going somewhere, that this is the thing. And I just want to stress, maybe that's not the word, I just want to stress that upon people that how wonderful that something like this has just shown over and over to give us this this power in our lives to change our circumstances, really, in so many ways. So, Lynda, please continue. You were kind of explaining us how we can get started, that it's really a lot simpler than we think. And during the break, I was asking, well, what happens if after we get our pen and paper, we feel kind of stuck. And you said that there's actually some methods there that you have. So I'd love to share that with everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Well, the blank page can be a very daunting place. It tends not to be for seasoned journal writers because they've done it a lot and they've just built that relationship with themselves as a journal writer. But if you're starting out, sometimes it can be helpful, and even as a seasoned journal writer, to remember that whatever you write is right. Journaling is a very self-empowering act by virtue that we are always the experts of our own experience. And we really remember that as journal writers because we meet ourselves on the page over and over again. And it is a tool for building self-awareness. And then that awareness informs what we write next and how we live next. And so getting started, prompts can be really helpful. There's all kinds of different prompts. Some people will do timed writing, where they'll set a timer and write for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Some people do the morning pages, which was an offering through Julia Cameron in her book, The Artist's Way, many years ago. Filling 3 pages when you first wake up before you've done anything else, just that sort of conscious
stream of
consciousness writing. That's another technique. Some people will use their journals, especially for gratitude practice. So first thing in the morning, making a list of things they're grateful for and really embodying that feeling of gratitude to start their day. Some people have an end of day practice where they will write about something they feel, what did they learn that day? What do they feel proud of from their day? What are they grateful for as the day comes to a close? And Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, he taught us about end of day, the last 5 minutes, that what we think about in the last 5 minutes comes with us into our sleep time, into our subconscious time. So if the last thing we think about before going to sleep is our stress, our worries, our burnout, our problems, that then is like pushing the set button for what's coming with us into our sleep. So we can use our journals at the end of the day to maybe we had something really stressful happen that day, but we want to write about how we coped with it. We want to write about maybe what we learned from it. Or we might just sort of kind of positioning that positive, solution-focused, optimistic, hopeful perspective, grateful perspective, letting journaling be one of the tools that helps us do that. At the end of our day, at the morning, you can use it for setting intention. What type of day do you want to have? How do you want to feel that day? What will help you feel that way? So it becomes a real tool for designing our days, designing our lives by virtue of positioning it, beginning of day, end of day. Other types of prompts are simply pulling a quote. You can just even Google quotes. You can Google quotes on happiness or joy or inspiration, and there's thousands of them. And pick one quote, write it at the top of your page, and then journal about what that quote makes you think or feel. You can do sentence starter prompts. So right now I'm feeling, or I'm dreaming about, or what I really want to have happen in 2020 is, and literally just start a sentence, ... and let it be where you go. When I'm feeling stressed, I notice. Really get familiar. There's people who teach around stress management, and this is common practice for us to know, what are our warning signs? So what are our top 3 when we know we're going into that red zone? Green zone is we're humming along, we're fine. Yellow, there's starting to be some warning signs and we're feeling our stress levels go up. Red zone is I gotta pay attention here. And hopefully we get good at this and we can more often respond in yellow zone than when we're off the. So we can use our journals to really get, some people will do some coloring. Here's my green light zone, my yellow light zone, my red light zone, and what do I feel like in these different zones? Things like priority setting. So what do I really want to say yes to, no to? We talk about sort of hell yes, hell no, and maybe, using the journal to be a time management tool, a priority setting tool. There's books and books. I've written a couple of them and co-authored one. This is Life Source Writing, which is a workbook. It shares a reflective journaling practice for self-discovery, self-care, wellness, and creativity. And it teaches a 5-step journaling method. In our book, Writing Alone Together, Journaling for a Circle of Women for Creativity, Compassion, and Connection, it's filled with prompts and samples of our raw journaling. So it's great to get some books. It's like any other hobby or craft. There's all kinds of books that can teach us. There's books filled with prompts and journaling activities. I publish a weekly newsletter that's always has journaling prompts and exercises in it. So that.
Did you say newsletter?
Yeah.
I love that.
The journaling inspiration newsletter. So it's good to. It's like anything, if you're a painter, you probably want to look at other paintings and painting techniques. If you're any hobby you have, we generally want to, add to our knowledge about it and tools and tricks and tips that we can use and keep that flow of inspiration coming. But with journaling, it's a personal practice. So unlike writing a book or a blog or even some of the world of social media, it's because it's for ourselves. Things like grammar and syntax, and we're not writing the next great novel. We may inform a book writing project from our journals, but when we're journaling, we're writing for ourselves first. We're writing to take that pause, to self-reflect, to relax, to be curious, and just enjoy the power of self-expression and storytelling and through the act of journaling and experience all the benefits and insights and health benefits that can come from doing it. So those are just some ideas.
So would you say, as we're looking kind of towards burnout, and we talked about so many different ways, going from prompts to drawings and all the fact that there's really an opportunity available to us everywhere. Is it more so just getting into any habit of writing that can help us do that? Or should it be more this checking in with ourselves? How do I feel? Or does the first part matter? Just writing matter?
Just right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because the more rules and shoulds and expectations we put around it, the more we put up around how do we get it right, the less likely we are to do it. It just becomes an obstacle. And really, truly picking up your pen and starting to write with prompts or just the blank page. Again, prompts can help point it. Some people will pull tarot cards or angel cards or, things like that to get them started with journaling. I often do that. I have all kinds of decks around. And just, those little things to get to the page and then off you go. But there isn't a formula that says, step 1, step 2, step 3. You can make one, and Life Source Writing was an attempt to give some form to the steps of a practice. Yeah. But it is the show up and write. Pick up the pen and write. Yeah.
So there's both
and do
sides,
it as often as you can.
So we can be as free flowy as we want, or for those of us who aren't, like we just like freak out and we're like, give me structure and tell me what to do because I want to get an A, which I'm sure is something we can probably work out when we're journaling why we have this need. But there's also structure we could try to start with that you have kind of set for us, right? So so it sounds like this meets you wherever you are. I mean, really. So if you're like,
Yeah, it meets you and you meet it. And you're in a relationship with yourself when you're journaling, and you're in a relationship with the practice of journaling itself. Kay Adams is a wonderful journaling teacher, and she has the journal ladder, and it really looks at structure, pacing, and containment. So the more free flowing, like just going to the blank page, that's very unstructured, very uncontained, right? And that can take people off into deep places that they may be prepared or not prepared to want to go. And if the journaling is stirring up too much emotion or feels painful, you're in charge. You can stop. You can stop writing, take a break, come back to it, choose where you want to go next. Because we're not just writing about what we know, we're writing about what we don't know. We're writing to discover. We are writing, and the writing takes us there. And so it's a great mysterious path, but the structure, things like giving it a time limit, a time of day when you do it, where you do it, using prompts that really contain the writing. So like free writing blank page is the most, least structured, and timed writing with a prompt is more structured.
All right. Well, Lynda, before my last question, can you please tell everyone where they can find you and anything else that you have going on?
Sure. You can find us at the IAJW.org. That's the International Association for Journal Writing, our beloved acronym, IAJW.org. And we have a free gift there at IAJW.org/journal writing, all one word. And it's a 7 servings of journal juice, and it comes to your inbox every day. And each day has journaling prompts, different ideas, how to get started. And I wrote a comprehensive article on how to start journaling, which you can find on our blog at the same website. And there's lots of great resources there.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, so we will learn a little bit about my journaling homework for next week a little later, and I will let you guys know on Instagram. So thank you guys all for being here. I will let you know my assignment, and you'll be able to follow along at #JournalMedicine. And if you like this, make sure to follow us at My Design Life on all our social media, and also at Tanya MFK. Guys, also don't forget, we still are looking for interns for like-minded people. So if you're interested, make sure to contact UImedia.org. And thanks again for being here. Remember, your Sunday starts today. Make it the best. I'm Tanya MFK, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us at My Design Life. Catch us every other Monday at 3 p.m. EST. Follow us at Tanya MFK, My Design Life Show, United Intentions Foundation, and UI Media Network. Do you have methods, tips, or hacks to live your best life? Be a guest on our show. Contact us at mydesignlife.show to submit an application.